Mr. Callahan, why am I in your arms? Maya Brooks heard her own voice before she fully understood what had awakened her. Morning light slipped through the curtains of the guest room, pale and quiet, touching the edge of the blanket and the digital clock on the nightstand. 6:12 in the morning. Maya blinked once, then twice. Her cheek rested against the white dress shirt of Vincent Callahan, the most powerful man in the house and the last person she expected to find sleeping beside her. Vincent was sitting against the upholstered headboard rather than lying beneath the covers, his head tilted slightly to one side. One arm rested loosely around Maya's shoulders, apparently keeping her supported against the pillows. His shirt was wrinkled from the night before, his sleeves still rolled to his forearms, and for once his usually controlled expression had disappeared beneath simple exhaustion. Maya became perfectly still. At 31, she had learned to remain calm in uncomfortable situations, but there was no housekeeping manual for waking up against your employer. Mr. Callahan? Vincent's eyes opened immediately. For one silent second, neither of them moved. Then his gaze dropped toward his arm, returned to Maya's face, and sharpened with the same realization. He carefully moved his arm away and sat straighter. Before you panic, there is an explanation. Maya stared at him. That sentence is not helping. Vincent glanced toward the clock. Apparently I fell asleep. I gathered that. You were having trouble getting comfortable. Maya looked down toward her elevated ankle beneath the blanket. The memory returned in pieces. Rain against the windows, wet hardwood beneath her shoes, a sudden loss of balance. Vincent's voice somewhere above her. Then the humiliating discovery that she could not put normal weight on her left foot. After that came Dr. Rachel Monroe, an ice pack wrapped in a towel, instructions to rest, and Vincent refusing to let Maya walk downstairs to the staff quarters. But none of that explained why he was still here at sunrise. Maya looked back at him. You were supposed to leave. Vincent rubbed one hand over his tired face. That was the plan. What happened to the plan? You woke up twice. And both times you tried to get out of bed without asking for help. Maya frowned. I needed water. There was water on the nightstand. I forgot. You also forgot you injured your ankle. Despite herself, Maya almost smiled. You stayed because you thought I would try it again? I stayed because I knew you would. Silence settled between them. Vincent Callahan was not known for sitting beside injured employees until morning. He was known for closed doors, measured words, and the kind of authority that made conversations stop when he entered a room. Maya had worked at his estate for 8 months and had never seen him remain anywhere he did not need to be. Yet here he was, still wearing yesterday's clothes, looking almost embarrassed that simple concern had exposed something about him. Maya adjusted herself against the pillows. How did I end up against you? Vincent's mouth tightened as though he was choosing the safest possible answer. You fell asleep sitting upright. You started sliding sideways. I kept you from slipping off the pillows. And then apparently neither of us moved. Maya looked at him for a long moment. Nothing about his explanation felt improper. If anything, that made the moment stranger. She had spent months believing she understood exactly what kind of man Vincent Callahan was. 12 hours earlier, however, she had slipped on a rain-covered floor, insisted she was fine, and discovered something nobody in that mansion would have believed without seeing it. The Mafia Boss had looked at the injured maid who worked for him, ignored every invisible line separating their worlds, and lifted her into his arms. 12 hours earlier, rain had been striking the tall windows of the Callahan estate hard enough to blur the gardens beyond them into gray shadows. By early evening, wind had pushed water beneath one of the sunroom doors, leaving a thin sheet across part of the hardwood floor before anyone noticed. Maya Brooks was helping Margaret Ellis move towels and protect the furniture when another housekeeper called for more absorbent cloths from the service closet. Maya turned quickly, carrying a stack against her chest, and stepped onto a patch of wet flooring she had not seen. Her shoe slipped. She caught herself against the edge of a sturdy chair, but her left ankle turned awkwardly beneath her. The towels scattered across the floor. For a moment, Maya remained still, more surprised than frightened. Margaret hurried toward her. Do not move yet. I am fine. Maya placed one hand on the chair and carefully stood. The moment she tried putting normal weight on her left foot, discomfort forced her to stop. A man's voice came from the doorway. You are terrible at lying. Everyone in the sunroom went quiet. Vincent Callahan stood beneath the archway in dark trousers and a white dress shirt, his suit jacket folded over one arm. He had apparently left a meeting in the West study after hearing the commotion. Maya straightened instinctively. "Mr. Callahan, it is only my ankle." Vincent looked at the water on the floor, then at the way she was keeping her weight on her right leg. "Can you walk?" "Yes." Margaret gave Maya a look. Vincent noticed. "Try." Maya wished he had not said that. She took one careful step and immediately reached for the chair again. Vincent set his jacket aside. "That answers the question. I can get downstairs if someone gives me a minute. The staff quarters are down a full flight of stairs. I know where I live." His blue eyes narrowed slightly. "Then you know why you are not walking there tonight." Maya stared at him. She had worked in his home for 8 months, long enough to understand that Vincent rarely repeated himself. She also knew that accepting help from a man like him could feel more complicated than the help itself. "Margaret can bring me a chair." "And then what?" Vincent asked. "You roll yourself through the house." Maya folded her arms. That was not the plan. Good, because it was a bad one. Before she could argue again, Vincent stepped closer. "I am taking you to the ground floor guest room." Maya's eyes widened. "You are doing what?" "Saving us 15 minutes of you insisting you can walk." "Mr. Callahan, I really do not think you need to carry me." "I agree." He glanced pointedly at her ankle. "Unfortunately, your ankle has a different opinion." He gave her enough time to object, but not enough to invent another impossible solution. Then, with deliberate care, he lifted her, supporting her securely without putting pressure on the injured ankle. Maya froze in surprise. Around them, the staff suddenly found the wet floor extremely interesting. Vincent began walking toward the hallway. "You can put me down." "I could. Are you going to?" "No." Maya looked toward Margaret for assistance, but the older woman was hiding a smile behind a stack of towels. "This is embarrassing." Vincent's expression remained serious. "Getting hurt is not embarrassing. Being carried through my workplace by my employer is unusual. That is a more accurate word." He carried her into the ground floor guest room and carefully helped her onto the edge of the bed. Within minutes, Margaret had brought pillows and an ice pack wrapped in a towel, while Vincent called Dr. Rachel Monroe. Maya watched him from across the room, confused by how personally he seemed to be handling something he could easily have delegated. "You have a meeting," she reminded him. Vincent ended the call. "It can wait." "Because I twisted my ankle?" "Because someone who works in my house got hurt in my house." Maya looked down at her hands. "I am sorry." Vincent's expression changed immediately. "For what?" "For causing trouble." He stared at her as though the idea itself irritated him. "Stop apologizing for getting hurt." Less than an hour later, Dr. Monroe confirmed that the injury appeared to be a manageable sprain and gave Maya clear instructions for rest, cold therapy, elevation, and follow-up if anything worsened. Vincent listened to every word. Maya noticed that too. What she did not yet understand was why a man famous for keeping everyone at a distance had suddenly decided hers was worth crossing. By 9 the next morning, Maya had already decided she had rested long enough. The guest room was quiet, her ankle elevated on 2 pillows exactly as Dr. Monroe had instructed, and a fresh ice pack sat wrapped in a towel beside her. Margaret had also left breakfast on a small table, and given Maya one unmistakable instruction before leaving: stay in bed. Maya lasted 23 minutes. She had spent most of her adult life depending on herself, and inactivity made her more uncomfortable than the ache in her ankle. She carefully stood, tested her balance, and reached for the housekeeping cart Margaret had parked outside the room. Using it for support, she made it halfway down the corridor before Vincent Callahan appeared around the corner. He stopped. Maya stopped. His gaze moved from her face to her hands gripping the cart, then down toward the ankle she was trying very hard not to favor. "No." Maya blinked. "Good morning to you too." Back to the room. "I am only checking the downstairs linens. You are supposed to be resting." "I have been resting." Vincent glanced at his watch. "For less than an hour." Maya lifted her chin. "I need this job, Mr. Callahan." Something in her voice changed the expression on his face. The irritation disappeared. "And you still have it." Maya hesitated. "I cannot afford to sit around while everyone else does my work." "You were injured while working here. You are not losing your wages because you follow the doctor's instructions." "That is not what I meant." "Then tell me what you meant." Maya looked down the empty hallway. She disliked how vulnerable the answer felt. "I meant I do not need saving." Vincent was silent for a moment. Good. She looked back at him. Good. Because I am not offering salvation. He pulled a chair away from a small writing desk against the wall and positioned it beside her. I am offering a chair. Maya stared at it, then at him. Despite herself, a laugh escaped her. It was small, but Vincent heard it. For the first time since she had started working at the estate 8 months earlier, she saw something close to amusement soften his face. That was almost a joke, she said. Do not spread it around. Your reputation would never recover. Exactly. The humor faded, but the tension did not return. Vincent rested one hand against the back of the chair. Sit down, Maya. This time it sounded less like an order. She lowered herself carefully. You know, most employers would let Margaret handle this. Margaret has been trying to handle you all morning. She complained. She described you as stubborn. Maya raised an eyebrow. And you disagreed? I recognized the condition. Their eyes met, and something unexpectedly equal passed between them. Two stubborn people from worlds that had no reason to overlap, recognizing themselves in each other. Maya looked away first. Why do you care this much? Vincent's expression became guarded again. You were hurt. Employees get hurt. That does not make them disposable. The words landed quietly. Maya had worked in homes where staff became invisible the moment the owners entered a room. She had learned to do excellent work without expecting gratitude and to leave dignity outside no door, no matter how wealthy the people behind it were. Vincent seemed to understand something about that without her explaining it. I am not asking for special treatment, she said. Then do not call basic consideration special. Maya studied him. You really do not like being thanked, do you? I dislike being thanked for things people should already do. Before she could answer, Margaret appeared at the far end of the hallway and folded her arms. I see you found my runaway. Vincent looked at Maya. Apparently. Margaret pointed toward the guest room. Back. Maya sighed. There are 2 of you now. Vincent stepped aside, leaving the decision visibly hers. Maya noticed that more than she expected. She stood carefully, accepted the lightweight cane Margaret had brought, and headed back toward the room without being carried. Vincent did not follow. He simply waited until she reached the doorway safely. Maya looked back once. He was still standing beside the abandoned housekeeping cart, watching with an expression she could not quite name. For the first time, she wondered whether the distance Vincent Callahan kept from everyone was not arrogance at all, but armor. Over the next 2 days, Maya discovered that recovering inside the Callahan estate was harder than working in it. Margaret kept her away from anything requiring long periods on her feet. Dr. Monroe checked in by phone, and Vincent somehow seemed to appear whenever Maya attempted to negotiate around either woman's instructions. Her ankle was improving, but the slower pace forced her to notice things she normally passed without thinking. Vincent ate breakfast alone at the far end of a dining table built for 12. He took calls behind closed doors and emerged looking exactly as composed as when he entered. Employees lowered their voices when he approached, guests measured their words around him, and even people who had known him for years seemed careful not to ask personal questions. On the 3rd evening, Maya sat near the library window organizing household inventory sheets Margaret had given her so she could work without standing. Vincent entered carrying a folder, stopped when he saw her, and glanced toward her ankle. Before you ask, I have been sitting for 2 hours. I was going to say good evening. Maya looked up. That would be a surprising development. He almost smiled. How is the ankle? Better. That sounded suspiciously honest. I am trying something new. Vincent crossed to his desk, but instead of disappearing behind his paperwork, he remained standing near the window. Rain from the earlier storm had cleared, leaving the ground silver beneath the evening light. Maya returned to the inventory sheets. You can work, she said. I am not stopping you. You are in my library. Margaret put me here because she said I was making everyone nervous in the staff room. How? Apparently watching people work while being forbidden to help feels judgmental. Vincent gave a quiet laugh. Maya looked up immediately. There it is again. What? Evidence you are human. His expression changed, not with offense but surprise. Most people in the house would never have said it. Maya lowered the papers. Can I ask you something? You usually do. Why does everyone act like speaking normally around you is dangerous? Vincent considered the question. Because people are careful around power. That sounds lonely. His eyes settled on her. Power usually is. The answer came too quickly to be rehearsed. Maya saw the man beneath the reputation for only a second before the familiar restraint returned. You could make it easier for them, she said. How? Stop looking like every conversation is a negotiation. Most conversations are. Not this one. Silence stretched between them. Vincent glanced at the inventory sheets. What is this one? Laundry supply costs. And what do you want from me? Nothing. Then why are you talking to me? Maya smiled faintly. That question might be the problem. Vincent looked at her for a long moment. She could almost see him searching for the hidden request because his world had trained him to expect one. There was none. Maya wanted no favor, no money, no special position. She had simply noticed a lonely man sitting inside a house full of people. Vincent finally took the chair across from her. What do normal people talk about when they want nothing? You are 42 years old, and you are asking me how conversations work. Apparently. Maya laughed, and this time Vincent did too. It was brief, restrained, but real. They talked for 20 minutes about ordinary things. Terrible airport coffee, New York winters, Margaret's obsession with perfectly folded towels, and Maya's belief that no house needed 7 different kinds of sparkling water. When Margaret appeared at the doorway, she stopped without announcing herself. Vincent Callahan was sitting across from one of his employees with an untouched folder beside him, listening instead of commanding. Maya noticed Margaret and began gathering her papers. Vincent stood. You do not have to leave. Maya looked toward the clock. I should elevate my ankle. Dr. Monroe would be impressed. Do not tell her. I have a reputation too. Vincent smiled again. As Maya carefully walked toward the doorway with her cane, she realized something had shifted, not enough to name, and certainly not enough to trust. Behind her, Vincent remained beside the window, watching the empty chair across from him. For years, he had assumed distance protected him from meeting anyone. Maya Brooks was beginning to make that distance feel less like protection and more like a room he had locked from the inside. By Friday evening, Maya could cross a room without the cane, though Margaret still kept it within reach as if expecting rebellion. Vincent had spent most of the day away from the estate, and Maya was surprised by how often she noticed his absence. Their conversations in the library had become an unexpected part of her recovery. Brief exchanges about ordinary things that seemed almost impossible inside a house where everyone knew Vincent Callahan as a man who rarely wasted words. That evening, however, the estate changed the moment Claire Callahan arrived. Vincent's younger sister swept through the front entrance in an ivory coat, greeted Margaret by name, and immediately began rearranging details for the small dinner gathering Vincent was hosting. Maya had met Claire twice before. Both times, Claire had been perfectly polite in the way people sometimes became polite when they wanted distance to remain unmistakable. Maya was helping Margaret review the dining room settings from a chair near the sideboard when Claire noticed her. Still recovering? She asked. Almost back to normal, Maya replied. Claire's eyes moved toward the chair. How fortunate everyone has been so accommodating. The words were harmless. The tone was not. Maya simply smiled. They have been kind. By 7:30, several guests had arrived, and Maya remained nearby only because Margaret needed her to verify a revised seating arrangement. Vincent entered from the hallway, his dark suit immaculate, his expression returning instantly to the controlled mask Maya had learned was not the whole man. His eyes found her for half a second. How is the ankle? Improving. Claire heard him. Maya saw something shift in her expression. Later, while Margaret was checking the kitchen, Claire approached Maya near the dining room doorway. My brother seems unusually interested in your recovery. Maya kept her voice even. Mr. Callahan has been considerate. Vincent can sometimes confuse responsibility with personal involvement. Maya understood the warning immediately. I have not confused anything. Claire smiled faintly. Good. Staff usually understand when they are becoming too familiar. The conversation around the table softened. Not completely, but enough. Maya felt several people pretending not to listen. Across the room, Vincent turned. His expression hardened. Claire. Maya raised one hand slightly before he could continue. It was not dramatic, but it stopped him. She did not need him answering for her. Maya looked directly at Claire. I understand exactly where I work and what my responsibilities are. Claire opened her mouth, but Maya continued with the same calm voice. I also understand that kindness does not erase professional boundaries. Respecting me does not make your brother less powerful. The room became still. Claire's smile disappeared. Maya did not look toward Vincent for approval. She did not need it. If you will excuse me, Margaret is waiting for these seating notes. She picked up the papers and walked away carefully, refusing to hurry even though every instinct told her to escape the attention. Vincent watched her cross the doorway before turning back to his sister. You embarrassed her, Claire said quietly. No, Vincent replied. You tried to. Claire stared at him. She works for you. That describes her employment. It does not describe her worth. For once, Claire had no immediate response. Maya heard none of this. She had already reached the quiet service hallway, where she stopped beside a window and released the breath she had been holding. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the effort of remaining composed while strangers measured whether she belonged in the room. Margaret appeared beside her. You all right? Maya nodded. I will be. Margaret studied her for a moment. You did not need anyone to defend you. No. Maya looked through the doorway toward the distant dining room. Vincent stood alone near the table now, watching the hallway where she had disappeared. But it matters that someone wanted to. Later that night, Vincent found himself replaying Maya's words. He had spent years believing power meant controlling what happened inside every room he entered. Maya had done something harder. She had stood in a room where she held the least power and refused to surrender an inch of dignity. And Vincent realized with unsettling clarity that what drew him toward her was no longer gratitude, curiosity, or responsibility. It was respect, and respect was becoming something far more difficult to keep at a safe distance. The house was finally quiet when Maya discovered that pride could be louder than pain. The dinner guests had left nearly an hour earlier. Claire had retired to the east wing, and the long hallways of the Callahan estate had settled beneath the soft amber glow of night lamps. Maya lay awake in the ground floor guest room, staring at the ceiling while a dull ache returned to her healing ankle. Dr. Monroe had warned her that doing too much too soon could make the discomfort return, and Maya reluctantly admitted that spending part of the evening on her feet had probably been a mistake. She reached toward the nightstand and found the water glass empty. For several seconds, she considered calling Margaret. Then she imagined waking the woman after midnight because she needed water and immediately rejected the idea. Maya eased herself upright, placed both feet carefully on the floor, and stood. The hallway was only a few steps away. She had barely reached the doorway when a voice came from the shadows beyond it. Please tell me you are not planning another escape. Maya looked up. Vincent was walking toward her, his suit jacket gone and the sleeves of his white shirt rolled to his forearms. He had apparently finished another late call in his study. I need water. His eyes moved toward the empty glass in her hand. That is almost a reasonable excuse. Almost. You could have called someone. At midnight. That is why people have phones. Maya leaned lightly against the doorframe. Some of us do not enjoy summoning people every time we need something. The humor left Vincent's face. He took the glass from her and gestured toward the bed. Sit. I will get it. Vincent. It was the first time she had used his first name without thinking. Both of them noticed. He stopped. Maya seemed ready to correct herself, but he simply said, Sit, Maya. When he returned with water, she was resting against the pillows, her ankle elevated again. Vincent placed the glass on the nightstand and should have left. Instead, he pulled the nearby chair closer and sat down. Claire was wrong tonight, he said. Maya looked at him. I do not need an apology from you for something your sister said. I know. Then why are you apologizing? Vincent considered that. Because I should have understood sooner what it feels like to have people decide what you deserve based on your position. Maya gave him a tired smile. You are a wealthy man who owns a house with more bathrooms than I have relatives. I am not sure you can completely understand. Probably not. The answer surprised her. He did not defend himself. Maya looked down at her hands. I have spent most of my life making sure I could take care of myself. My mother worked 2 jobs when I was growing up. She taught me never to confuse needing help with weakness, but somehow I learned to avoid needing anything at all. Vincent leaned back slightly. That sounds exhausting. It is. She looked at him. You would know. His expression became still. What does that mean? You live in a house full of people, but you never ask anyone for anything you cannot pay them to provide. Vincent's eyes shifted toward the dark window. Maya continued softly. Maybe that is why you look lonely even in a house full of people. For several seconds, he said nothing. No one spoke to Vincent Callahan that way. More importantly, no one usually looked closely enough to say it. Depending on people has consequences in my world, he finally said. Everything becomes leverage. Not everything. Enough things. Maya studied him. Then maybe you have been surrounded by the wrong people. A faint smile touched his face, but sadness remained behind it. And you think you are different? Maya shook her head. I think you should decide that for yourself. The room grew quiet. Rainwater still clung to the windows from an earlier shower, catching reflections from the hallway lamps. Vincent glanced at the clock. You should sleep. So should you. I will. Maya raised an eyebrow. You are terrible at lying. Vincent recognized his own words and laughed softly. Maya smiled. Neither noticed how much distance had disappeared between them until silence no longer felt uncomfortable. Vincent remained in the chair, while Maya settled against the pillows, intending to stay only until she fell asleep. But sometime after midnight, when her breathing finally became slow and even, Vincent was still there, staring toward the darkened window and wondering when the woman who insisted she needed nobody had become the first person in years to notice that he had been living exactly the same way. Vincent intended to leave the moment Maya fell asleep, but sometime after 1 in the morning, intention quietly surrendered to exhaustion. He had moved from the chair to the edge of the bed only after Maya woke for the second time, disoriented and trying to sit upright without disturbing her ankle. He helped arrange the pillows behind her, handed her the water, and waited until the tension left her face. You can go, she murmured. I know. Then why are you still here? Vincent looked toward the doorway as though he had been asking himself the same question. Because you are going to wait 5 minutes and decide you need something from the other side of the house. Maya's eyes remained closed. That happened once. Twice. You keep records? Occupational habit. A tired smile crossed her face. You are very bad at leaving. Vincent almost answered, but her breathing had already slowed. He stayed seated against the upholstered headboard, leaving careful space between them, telling himself he would wait another 10 minutes. Maya shifted in her sleep. Her head slipped sideways from the pillows, and Vincent instinctively steadied her shoulder before she could slide into an uncomfortable position. She settled against him instead. He froze. For a man accustomed to making decisions without hesitation, the simple movement left him strangely uncertain. He could wake her. He could move away. But Maya finally looked peaceful after a long evening, and shifting her again risked disturbing her injured ankle. Vincent adjusted the pillow behind her and kept one arm loosely around her shoulders only to support her position. Then exhaustion found him too. Hours passed. At 6:12 in the morning, pale light reached across the guest room floor and touched the edge of the blanket. Maya opened her eyes. For several seconds, she registered only warmth, the quiet room, and the steady rise of someone's breathing beside her. Then memory returned. Her cheek rested against Vincent's wrinkled white shirt. His arm was loosely around her shoulders. Maya became completely still. Mr. Callahan, why am I in your arms? Vincent's eyes opened immediately. Confusion crossed his face, followed by recognition. He carefully withdrew his arm and straightened. Before you panic, there is an explanation. Maya stared at him. That sentence is not helping. He glanced toward the clock. Apparently I fell asleep. I gathered that. You were having trouble getting comfortable. Maya looked down at her elevated ankle, then back at him. You were supposed to leave. Vincent rubbed a hand over his face. That was the plan. What happened to the plan? You woke up twice. And both times you tried to get out of bed without asking for help. Maya narrowed her eyes. So you stayed to supervise me? I prefer prevent further bad decisions. That sounds like supervision. The corner of his mouth moved. Then yes. Maya should have laughed, but the moment suddenly felt heavier. She was his employee. He was the man who signed the checks that allowed her to support herself. Whatever warmth had grown between them during the past few days existed beside that undeniable fact. Vincent seemed to reach the same conclusion. He stood, putting respectful distance between them. Maya, his voice had changed. Nothing happened here that you did not choose. I know. And if my staying made you uncomfortable, I am sorry. Maya studied him. There was no command in his expression now, no expectation that she reassure him. You did not make me uncomfortable, she said quietly. Somehow, that answer made the silence deeper. Vincent looked toward the morning light. That might be the more complicated answer. Maya understood. For the first time, the distance between them was no longer something imposed by wealth, employment, or the walls of the estate. It was something both of them would have to choose whether to cross, and neither of them could pretend anymore that they had not reached it. For the rest of that morning, Vincent gave Maya exactly what neither of them wanted: distance. He returned to his study. She remained in the guest room, and the estate resumed its familiar rhythm as though nothing unusual had happened at 6:12. Yet Maya could not forget the expression on his face when he stepped away from the bed. It had not been embarrassment. It had been restraint. By afternoon, Dr. Monroe examined Maya again and confirmed that the swelling had improved enough for her to resume light activity, provided she avoided unnecessary strain. Maya thanked her, then asked Margaret for a private conversation. "I want to leave the live-in position when my ankle is fully recovered," she said. Margaret lowered the inventory folder in her hands. "Because of Vincent?" Maya hesitated. "Because I need to know that whatever happens next in my life is something I chose without owing anyone for it." Margaret understood immediately. 3 days later, Maya found Vincent alone in the library. Evening light stretched across the mahogany desk where they had shared their first ordinary conversation. He looked up from a folder. "Your ankle? Better. That sounds honest this time." Maya smiled faintly, but did not sit. "I am leaving the estate." Vincent became motionless. "Did Claire say something else?" "No." "Did anyone make you uncomfortable?" "No." "Then why?" Maya took a slow breath. "Because this job includes my room, my paycheck, and most of my daily life. You control all three." Vincent's expression tightened, but he did not interrupt. "I trust you," Maya continued. "That is exactly why I need to be careful. If there is something between us, I never want to wonder whether I stayed because leaving was too expensive." The room went silent. Vincent could have offered her more money. He could have promised a different position, a separate apartment, or enough comfort to make leaving unnecessary. Maya saw every possible solution pass behind his eyes. Then he chose the only answer that did not use his power. All right. Maya had prepared herself for resistance. His agreement hurt more than she expected. "That is it." "No." Vincent stood. "It is not what I want." "But what I want cannot be the reason you stay." Maya looked away. "Margaret knows a hotel manager in Manhattan. There is an operations position opening next month. Do you want it?" "I want to interview for it." Vincent nodded. "Then interview. I do not want you making a phone call." "I will not." "Or buying the hotel." For the first time, he almost laughed. "That seems excessive even for me." Maya smiled, then became serious again. "And the wages I missed while recovering? You missed them because you were injured while working here. They are already covered. That is not a favor." She studied him, searching for the hidden condition. There was none. Vincent walked toward the window, putting several feet between them as though distance might make the next words easier. "Maya, I care about you." Her breath caught, but he continued before she could answer. "That is precisely why I am not going to ask you for anything while you work for me." Maya's eyes remained steady. "And after I leave?" Vincent turned toward her. "After you leave, you decide whether you ever want to see me again." The simplicity of it struck harder than any declaration could have. No command, no bargain, no promise designed to keep her close. Maya had spent years protecting her independence from people who believed generosity purchased access to her choices. Vincent was proving his feelings by refusing to purchase anything. 2 weeks later, Maya's ankle had healed enough for normal activity, and her final suitcase stood beside the service entrance. Margaret hugged her. Several members of the household said goodbye. Vincent waited a few feet away, his hands in his pockets, saying nothing until Maya approached him. "I got the job," she said. Something warm appeared in his expression. "Of course you did. You sound very confident. I have watched you argue with me for 3 weeks. That hotel never had a chance." Maya laughed softly. Then the silence returned. "Goodbye, Vincent." His eyes held hers. "Goodbye, Maya." She turned and walked toward the waiting car. He did not stop her. He did not ask when she would return. He let her leave with every choice still belonging to her. And as the car disappeared beyond the gates, Maya finally understood that the most powerful thing Vincent Callahan had ever done for her was not carrying her when she could not walk. It was standing perfectly still when she could. 3 months later, spring had softened the Callahan estate into a place Maya almost did not recognize. The bare trees beyond the gates were green again. White flowers bordered the long driveway, and afternoon sunlight stretched across the stone steps where she stood wondering why ringing a doorbell suddenly required courage. Her ankle had healed completely. The hotel operations job had become demanding in all the right ways, giving her responsibilities she had earned without anyone knowing or caring that she once worked for Vincent Callahan. She had her own apartment, her own paycheck, and a life that belonged entirely to her. She could have stayed away. For 3 months, Vincent had honored his promise. No unexpected visits. No expensive gifts. No messages designed to remind her what he could offer. He had sent exactly one note after Margaret told him Maya had completed her first month at the hotel. It contained 5 words. "You earned this. Well done." Maya had kept it. Now she pressed the doorbell. Footsteps approached from inside, and the front door opened. Vincent stood there without a jacket, wearing dark trousers and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then his gaze dropped briefly toward her ankle before returning to her face. "You are walking normally." Maya smiled. "That is your opening line. I had 3 months to prepare something better. Apparently you wasted them." A familiar smile appeared, small but unmistakable. "What are you doing here, Maya?" She looked past him into the entrance hall. Everything seemed familiar. The polished floor, the staircase, the quiet clock near the library doors. Yet she was different. There was no gray uniform, no housekeeping cart waiting somewhere behind her, no schedule telling her where she belonged. "I was in the neighborhood." Vincent raised an eyebrow. "The nearest hotel is several miles away. You have become annoyingly observant." "You taught me." Maya laughed softly. The silence that followed was not uncomfortable. Vincent did not invite her inside immediately. He waited, leaving the next step to her. Maya noticed. "Did you forget something?" he finally asked. "Maybe." "What?" She held his gaze. "You never finished asking me to dinner." Vincent became very still. Months earlier, that silence might have frightened her. Now she understood it. He was making certain he had heard what she intended him to hear. "Dinner?" he asked. Maya tilted her head. "Now you are asking. Then let me try again." His voice softened. "Maya Brooks, would you have dinner with me? As your former employee? No. As someone you feel responsible for? Definitely not. As someone you think needs rescuing?" Vincent almost laughed. "I learned that lesson." Maya let him wait another second. "Then yes." Something changed in his face, not triumph and not possession, simply relief. He stepped aside from the doorway. Maya looked toward the side of the estate where she had entered hundreds of times through the service entrance. Then she looked at the open front door before her. Vincent followed her gaze and understood without asking. Maya crossed the threshold. This time, she was not entering because a work schedule required it. She was not carrying linens, checking rooms, or waiting for instructions. She entered because she had chosen to come back. Vincent closed the door and walked beside her rather than ahead of her. "There is one problem," Maya said. "What?" "If you pick a restaurant with 7 kinds of sparkling water, I am leaving." Vincent laughed, the unguarded sound echoing through the entrance hall. "I remember." "Good." They continued toward the library, 2 people who had once lived on opposite sides of an invisible line. Vincent had carried Maya when she could not walk, but he had earned her trust when he allowed her to walk away. Maya had shown him that kindness without respect could become another form of control, and that love meant very little if the person receiving it was not free to choose it. Now there was no employer and employee standing beneath the afternoon light, no powerful man deciding the future of the woman beside him. There were only 2 people walking forward at the same pace, and that day, in a house built around power, dignity was the one thing neither of them had to surrender.